Mountain cabins are meant to offer solitude, warmth, and a peaceful escape from the world. Yet across America, some of these remote cabins hold darker secrets. In the stillness of the woods, where the wind whispers through pines and snow falls silently, there are places where shadows move on their own. Where icy drafts brush against the living, and where the past refuses to stay buried. Visitors have reported ghostly figures staring from windows, doors creaking when no one is there, and the sound of footsteps echoing through empty halls. Tonight, we journey into 20 of the most haunted mountain cabins in America, places where the line between the living and the dead fades into the mist. Places where the line between the living and the dead fades into the mist. Where the line between the living and the dead fades into the mist. Fades into the mist. Cabins in the mountains are meant to be refuges. A place to relax, to breathe fresh air, and to enjoy the quiet beauty of nature. But some mountain cabins are far from peaceful. Across the United States, haunted cabins are steeped in history, tragedy, and mysterious phenomena. Some have witnessed accidental deaths, violent encounters, or untimely tragedies that left restless spirits behind. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, shadows flitting across rooms, and the faint sound of whispers calling from the darkness. Some even see figures lingering by windows or walking through walls. Imagine stepping into a remote cabin as the sun sets behind the peaks. The wind whines through the trees, the fireplace crackles, and the shadows seem just a little too long. A sudden chill brushes your arm. You glance toward the corner of the room. And a shadowy figure watches you, disappearing when you blink. As we explore these 20 haunted mountain cabins, picture yourself alone in the forest. Snow crunching beneath your feet. Mist curling around the porch. Every creak and groan of the cabin carrying a story from the past. Before we step inside the first haunted cabin, consider Thesa. If you were alone in a cabin at night and a ghost appeared at your window, would you dare to open the door? Shadow Pines Cabin, Colorado, sits isolated among the towering peaks of the Rockies, its wooden frame weathered by decades of harsh winters and mountain winds. The cabin gained its ominous reputation decades ago when a family vanished without explanation. They were never found, leaving behind only their belongings and a house frozen in time. Visitors who venture near report more than the solitude of the mountains. They describe an atmosphere thick with unease, as if the very air carries the weight of memories and sorrow. Windows often reveal fleeting shadows, shapes that appear just long enough to suggest the presence of someone inside. Laughter sometimes drifts from empty rooms, a sound that seems to come from nowhere yet resonates with a chilling familiarity. Doors open and close without cause, responding to no hand or wind, and the soft creak of floorboards can be heard even when the cabin is empty. Those who explore the cabin report sensations that defy explanation. A sudden chill brushes across the neck. A cold hand grazes an arm. Or a whisper is carried on the wind with no visible source. The effect is subtle yet unmistakable, leaving a lingering impression that the cabin is not simply abandoned but occupied in ways beyond the physical. The interior bears the marks of an interrupted life. Furniture is covered in dust, yet occasionally finds itself slightly moved as if someone invisible has adjusted it. Personal items remain as they were left, each one a fragment of the lives that disappeared. Plates rest on tables, books lie open, and toys remain scattered across the floor, small reminders of the family that vanished and the stories that remain untold. As daylight fades, the cabina's presence grows more pronounced. Shadows stretch unnaturally along the walls, flickering with the movement of the trees outside. The sound of laughter or soft footsteps becomes more distinct, echoing through rooms that have been empty for decades. Visitors often describe a sensation of being watched, a constant awareness that unseen eyes are observing their every movement. Outside, the surrounding forest adds to the tension. Pines sway in patterns that create shifting shadows, and the mountain air carries strange, unidentifiable sounds. Footsteps may be heard on the porch when no one is present, and the distant howl of wildlife seems to mingle with whispers that do not belong to any animal. The landscape itself becomes part of the haunting, a setting that enhances the feeling of isolation and the presence of something unseen. Those who linger too long often report experiences that border on the surreal. Shapes may move through the corner of vision, only to vanish when looked at directly. The sound of soft laughter or conversation drifts just beyond comprehension, leaving a sense of unease and curiosity. Some visitors feel drawn to certain areas, inexplicably compelled to approach doors, windows, or corners where the energy seems most concentrated. Shadow Pine's cabin embodies the intersection of history and mystery. Every object, every creak of the floorboards, every shifting shadow contributes to the narrative of a family lost and a home never truly empty. The cabin is a place where time feels suspended, where the ordinary rhythms of the forest and mountains coexist with phenomena that defy rational explanation. Even in the brightest daylight, the cabin exudes an aura of suspense. Light falls unevenly through the pines, casting patterns across the walls and floors that suggest movement where none exists. The natural sounds of wind, birds, and rustling leaves often combine with inexplicable noises from within the cabin, creating a sense that the past is entwined with the present, never fully letting go. Visitors often leave with more questions than answers. The cabin's story is communicated not through words, but through atmosphere and experience. Each creak, shadow, and unexplained sound reinforces the sense that the lives that disappeared decades ago are not entirely gone. That fragments of their existence remain woven into the fabric of the building and surrounding forest. Shadow Pine's cabin stands as a testament to the unknown, a location where the boundaries between reality and memory blur. Its history, marked by tragedy, continues to ripple outward, affecting all who come near. The cabin invites observation, reflection, and a cautious respect for the unseen, offering an experience that lingers long after visitors have departed, leaving a haunting impression of a home where echoes never fade. To enter Shadow Pine's cabin is to step into a world where history, loss, and mystery intertwine. Every creaking floorboard, shifting shadow, and faint whisper tells a story of lives interrupted and of presence that refuses to fade. The cabin remains a silent sentinel in the Colorado Rockies, a place where the past is alive in ways that are both subtle and profoundly compelling, challenging all who enter to perceive and reckon with the echoes it holds. Raven's Hollow Cabin sits deep within the dense forests of Oregon. A secluded structure surrounded by towering evergreens and the soft whisper of the wind through their branches. Its wooden walls, darkened with age, seem to absorb the shadows of the forest, giving the cabin an almost otherworldly presence even during the day. Visitors who approach it often remark on a feeling of being watched, as if the forest itself holds its breath in anticipation. Inside, the atmosphere shifts subtly. The cabin retains the warmth of a roaring fireplace, yet some guests describe sudden cold drafts that snake through the rooms without any visible source. The chill is fleeting but unmistakable, lingering just long enough to create a sense of unease. The floors creak softly underfoot, and the faint scent of old wood and smoke hangs in the air, mingling with a subtle aroma that is difficult to place, like the memory of something long forgotten. Many who stay overnight report seeing figures moving in the corners of their vision. The most commonly described apparition is a woman dressed in old-fashioned clothing, her silhouette barely discernible in the dim light. She glides silently through the hallways, sometimes pausing near the fireplace or standing at the edges of rooms before vanishing without a sound. Guests have described her presence as both melancholy and watchful, an echo of a life once lived within the cabina's walls. Whispers are another frequent occurrence. Voices, soft and almost imperceptible, seem to drift through the hallways, often calling the names of visitors. At times the whispers are indistinct, like fragments of conversation, while at other moments they are clear enough to startle those who hear them. The sounds do not follow a pattern, appearing in one room and then fading, leaving the listener questioning if they truly heard a voice or simply imagined it. The history of Ravena's hollow cabin is shrouded in mystery, and local lore suggests that it has stood for over a century, sheltering families and travelers who passed through the forest. Stories of tragedy and loss are whispered among those who know the area, adding to the cabina's spectral reputation. Some believe the woman in old-fashioned clothing is tied to these events, a presence rooted in sorrow and memory, remaining in the cabin to witness what unfolds around her. The forest surrounding the cabin contributes to its unsettling atmosphere. Shadows stretch and twist in the fading light, and the wind carries sounds that seem almost human in their cadence. Travelers have reported glimpses of movement outside the windows, shapes slipping between the trees that vanish when closely observed. Even during the quiet of midday, there is a sense that the woods are alive with attention, that unseen eyes follow every step. Inside, the rooms of the cabin seem to shift with perception. Doors creak open on their own, sometimes closing moments later with a soft thud. Objects are occasionally found in different positions from where they were left. And faint footsteps echo along the floors at times when no one else is in the cabin. Guests report that the sensations are not violent or malicious. But there is an unmistakable intelligence behind the activity. A presence aware of the living who enter the space. Many visitors attempt to understand the woman's story, piecing together clues from the architecture, the artifacts left behind, and the energy that permeates the cabin. Portraits, faded furniture, and worn trinkets hint at a life interrupted, a family or individual whose story is only partially known. The ambience is heavy with history, and the feeling of connection between past and present is almost tangible, a thread linking the living to those who once called Raven's Hollow home. Nighttime intensifies the phenomena. The fireplace flickers in unpredictable ways, casting shadows that dance across the walls and ceiling. Whispers grow more frequent, and the presence of the apparition seems more deliberate, as if acknowledging the occupants of the cabin. Guests describe a mix of awe and trepidation, sensing that the spirit is not hostile, but that it watches with purpose and patience. The cabin becomes a stage where the echoes of the past play out for those who enter, a space where history refuses to remain silent. Despite the unsettling occurrences, many feel compelled to return. There is a strange allure to the cabin, a pull that goes beyond curiosity. The combination of natural beauty, isolation, and lingering presence creates an atmosphere unlike any other. The stories told by those who have stayed are carried forward, adding to the legend of Ravena's hollow cabin, and drawing new visitors eager to experience its mysteries firsthand. Ravena's hollow cabin remains a place where the boundaries between past and present blur. The forest holds its secrets close, and the woman in old-fashioned clothing continues her silent vigil. Whispers and cold drafts remind visitors that they are not alone, that the memory of the cabina's history is alive and watching. Each creak, each flicker of shadow, each hushed voice contributes to a narrative that stretches back through generations, inviting those who enter to witness a story that is ongoing and enduring. For anyone who steps inside, the cabin is more than a place to rest. It is a living repository of memory, a space where the energy of the past lingers, shaping the experience of the present. Guests leave with a sense of having shared a moment with something unseen yet profoundly felt. Carrying with them the memory of Raven's hollow cabin and the quiet presence that endures among the trees. Bloodwood Cabin sits deep in the Montana wilderness, far from the nearest road and surrounded by dense forest. Its weathered logs and moss-covered roof give it the appearance of a place long forgotten. Yet those who venture near often feel the weight of something unseen pressing through the air. The isolation amplifies every sound, every rustle of leaves, every snap of a branch. As if the forest itself watches and listens. Over the years, hikers who sought solitude have vanished without explanation. Trails that once seemed clear can become confusing, twisting through the trees in ways that defy memory. Visitors describe a sudden shift in the atmosphere as they approach the cabin, a chill that wraps around them like a warning. It is a place where the ordinary rules of nature and perception seem to bend, where the boundary between the living and the lost grows thin. Ghostly figures are reported moving silently through the trees that surround the cabin. Some appear partially obscured by fog or shadows, while others step out for a fleeting moment before dissolving into the forest. Observers often catch these figures from the corner of their eyes, only for them to vanish when looked at directly. Their presence is subtle yet undeniable, leaving a sense of being watched and attention that lingers long after they disappear. The cabin itself holds stories etched into its walls. Visitors have reported doors opening slowly on their own and windows rattling with no wind to blame. Cold spots appear in corners and along the threshold, as if invisible hands have walked the rooms before them. Some say they have felt fingers brush their shoulders or a sudden pressure in the air that moves with them as they step from room to room. These phenomena are never violent but persistent, leaving a deep impression on anyone who experiences them. The surrounding forest seems to participate in the cabina's haunting. Trees groan under their own weight and branches shift in ways that suggest movement. And footsteps echo where no one has walked. And branches shift in ways that suggest movement, and footsteps echo where no one has walked, and faint whispers rise with the wind. Carrying words that cannot be understood yet feel familiar, and glimpses of fleeting shapes dart among the trunks. And faint whispers rise with the wind, carrying words that cannot be understood yet feel familiar, and glimpses of fleeting shapes dart among the trunks, always just out of reach. Those who spend time in Bloodwood Cabin describe a growing awareness of the cabina's history. With each passing hour, the air feels charged with both curiosity and unease, creating a sensation that the cabin itself is alive, observing, and remembering. At night, the forest around Bloodwood Cabin becomes almost surreal. Moonlight filtering through the trees casts long, shifting shadows that stretch across the clearing. The darkness feels heavy, alive with movement that cannot be fully seen or explained. Some visitors report glowing eyes glimpsed among the underbrush, while others hear low murmurs that rise and fade like the remnants of old conversations. The experience is disorienting, blending the natural and supernatural into a single, tense reality. Despite the unsettling phenomena, many are drawn to Bloodwood Cabin by the challenge and allure of its mystery. The risk of the unknown is part of its attraction, compelling explorers to test their courage and perception. Each visit adds another layer to the cabina's story, as individuals witness phenomena unique to their own presence and sensitivity. No two experiences are exactly alike, yet a consistent sense of awareness and unseen attention binds them together. Evidence of the cabin's influence is subtle but compelling. Photographs sometimes capture faint shapes or mists that were not visible at the time. Temperature readings fluctuate inexplicably, dropping sharply in certain areas while remaining normal elsewhere. Audio devices occasionally pick up low, unidentifiable sounds, murmurs that seem to float just beyond the range of conscious understanding. These signs suggest that Bloodwood Cabin is a place where the past and present coexist, where memory and presence linger long after the physical act of living has ended. Visitors often leave the cabin with a lingering sense of connection and unease. The forest seems quieter after departure. Yet the memory of movement and sound remains vivid. Each step back to the road carries the knowledge that the cabin continues to exist in its own realm, unseen yet attentive, holding the echoes of all who have wandered there before. Bloodwood Cabin endures as a place of mystery and quiet power. Its isolation preserves a unique blend of natural beauty and haunting presence, offering an experience that is both captivating and unsettling. Every creak of wood, every flicker of shadow, and every whisper in the trees contributes to the story, ensuring that the memory of the lost hikers and the cabina's enigmatic presence continues to resonate in the minds of those who dare to explore. For those who approach Bloodwood Cabin, the forest and the structure themselves seem to respond, guiding attention to the subtle signs of the past. It is a place where curiosity meets caution, where each visitor must navigate both the tangible and intangible elements that define the site. The cabin remains a testament to the endurance of memory and the persistence of unseen presence. A haunting yet compelling destination in the vast wilderness of Montana. Hollow Peak Cabin rests on a remote slope in the California mountains. Its weathered timbers blending with the surrounding pine and fir trees. The land bears the weight of history, marked by mining accidents that claimed lives and left stories etched into the soil. Locals and visitors alike speak of experiences here that cannot be explained, moments when the ordinary gives way to the eerie and the unseen. As night falls, the cabin takes on a different character. Strange lights are often reported flickering among the trees or across the cabin windows. They are faint and elusive, sometimes appearing to dance along the tree line before vanishing entirely. The source of these lights is never clear, leaving those who witness them with a sense of awe and unease. Figures are frequently spotted along the edge of the forest. Observers describe shadows moving between the trees, gliding silently across the underbrush. When approached, these forms vanish as if swallowed by the night itself. The sensation is subtle, a fleeting brush of awareness that something unseen is present, shaping the experience of the woods in a way that feels both intimate and unsettling. The cabin interior echoes with the history of the site. Floorboards creak under invisible weight, and doors occasionally swing open on their own, revealing empty rooms bathed in the soft glow of moonlight. The air carries a chill that seems to come from nowhere. A cold that is deeper than the evening temperature alone. Visitors report feeling watched. A quiet awareness that presence is near yet unseen. Even during daylight, Hollow Peak Cabin retains an unusual atmosphere. The shadows of the surrounding trees stretch across the walls, creating patterns that shift with the sun and suggest movement beyond the ordinary. The silence of the mountains amplifies every small sound, of the rustle of wind in the branches, the distant call of a bird, the faint creak of the cabin settling. In such stillness, the mind becomes attuned to subtle anomalies, and the line between perception and imagination blurs. Some explorers speak of faint voices carried on the wind. These sounds are almost imperceptible, whispers that could be dismissed as echoes of the forest. Yet they seem to call to something inside. A recognition of the cabina's past and the lives that intersected with this land. The stories of miners and their tragedies are felt here, lingering in the air like a memory that refuses to fade. The tree line itself seems to shift and respond to observers. Figures that appear solid from a distance dissolve into darkness when approached. There is no threat, yet the effect is unmistakable, an encounter that leaves one acutely aware of the unknown. Some report seeing shapes that resemble miners, their movements deliberate and fleeting, as if retracing steps long forgotten. Visitors who spend the night report an amplified sense of presence. The quiet is punctuated by sounds that have no source. And the cabin seems to breathe with a rhythm of its own. Shadows lengthen and twist in ways that defy explanation. And the flickering lights outside become more pronounced, reflecting on windows and walls with an otherworldly intensity. The experience is immersive, and every movement feels observed. Every whisper of wind a message from the past. Hollow Peak Cabin is a place where history and the present collide. The stories of mining accidents are embedded in the land. And those who come here cannot help but sense the residue of lives lived and lost. The combination of isolation, natural beauty, and subtle anomalies creates an environment that is both captivating and unnerving, a place where ordinary reality is layered with the extraordinary. Even when alone, visitors report feeling the presence of others. The figures in the tree line, the lights that appear without source, and the occasional creak of an empty floorboard create a narrative that is ongoing. A story told in shadows and sensations rather than words. The cabin becomes a participant in its own history, responding to those who enter, and leaving a lasting impression on their experience. Despite its remote location and eerie reputation, Hollow Peak Cabin continues. The allure lies not in fear alone but in the profound sense of connection to something beyond immediate perception. Each visit offers an encounter with the unknown, a reminder that places can hold memory, presence, and the faint whispers of history. The cabin is more than a structure, it is a witness. It observes silently as visitors move through its rooms, as shadows pass at the forest's edge, and as flickering lights play across the landscape, guiding those who explore it through an experience that is immersive, reflective, and quietly unsettling. Hollow Peak Cabin is a place where the past lingers in subtle ways. The miners who once worked nearby, the accidents that shaped the land, and the quiet resilience of the forest all converge to create an environment rich with unseen activity. The presence felt here is not aggressive, but insistent. A gentle yet persistent reminder that some places retain the echoes of history long after the people themselves have gone. For those who venture to Hollow Peak Cabin, the experience is unforgettable. The flickering lights, the figures at the tree lean, and the atmosphere of quiet watchfulness combine to form a narrative that is felt more than seen. It is a story of land, history, and lingering presence, an immersive encounter that blends natural beauty with a palpable sense of mystery. Hollow Peak Cabin invites contemplation and curiosity. It offers a space where visitors can experience the intersection of human history and the unexplained, where each shadow, sound, and light contributes to a larger story. The cabin and its surrounding hills remain alive in subtle ways, carrying the weight of memory and the presence of those who linger, unseen but undeniably there. Whispering Pines Cabin, Maine, rests deep within a dense forest, where towering pines stretch toward the sky, their needles rustling in the cold wind. Yet those who spend a night within its walls often speak of experiences that defy explanation, and linger long after the sun rises. The surrounding forest contributes to the sense of isolation. Paths narrow between thick trees, and the underbrush muffles sound, creating a stillness that feels almost unnatural. As night falls, an eerie hush descends, broken only by the occasional snap of a branch or the distant call of wildlife. It is in these moments that the whispers begin. Voices that drift through the trees and seem to beckon the listener closer without revealing their source. Guests report hearing names called softly from empty rooms, voices that carry across hallways yet leave no trace of a person. Sometimes the whispers are urgent, other times gentle, like a conversation meant for someone else entirely. Shadows appear along the walls, shifting and stretching as if alive, yet when approached they dissolve into the dim light. The cabin itself seems to breathe with the presence of memories, each creak of the floorboards and sigh of the wind contributing to the atmosphere of quiet unease. Inside, the cabin bears the marks of time and solitude. Furniture is arranged as if awaiting company, yet the rooms are empty. Windows reveal only the forest beyond, but reflections occasionally suggest movement where there should be none. Doors open and close without provocation, and footsteps echo along hallways long after the last guest has settled into their room. Each sound is subtle, yet it creates the impression that the cabin is not entirely alone. Visitors often describe a sense of being observed, a gentle awareness that unseen eyes are following their movements. Shadows flit across corners, disappearing when looked at directly, and faint music sometimes drifts through the air, soft and indistinct, as if coming from another time. Shadows flit across corners, disappearing when looked at directly, and faint music sometimes drifts through the air, soft and indistinct, as if coming from another time. The atmosphere is charged with a quiet tension, a feeling that the forest and the cabin themselves are in dialogue with those who enter. The atmosphere is charged with a quiet tension, a feeling that the forest and the cabin themselves are in dialogue with those who enter. Outside, the pine forest enhances the haunting quality of the cabin. Moonlight filters through the branches, casting long, shifting shadows across the snow or fallen leaves. The wind carries sounds that might be interpreted as whispers or calls, blending with natural noises in ways that make it difficult to distinguish between the ordinary and the supernatural. Guests walking along the forest paths often report a sense of being guided or watched, a sensation that adds to the cabina's mystique. The history of Whispering Pines Cabin is as enigmatic as the phenomena reported within. Few records exist to explain the origin of the voices or the shadows, leaving visitors to rely on personal experience and observation. Some speculate that the cabin preserves echoes of those who lived and worked in the area decades ago, while others believe the forest itself harbors energies that interact with human presence. Regardless of the explanation, the effect on guests is profound, leaving a lasting impression long after they depart. As night deepens, the cabina's presence grows more tangible. Shadows lengthen and merge with the darkness outside, and the soft rustle of the wind through the pines becomes a chorus of whispers. Those who remain awake often hear footsteps on the porch or in the hallways, yet find no source when investigated. Occasionally, glimpses of figures appear in corners or by windows, vanishing when approached, leaving only the memory of movement and the lingering impression of eyes unseen. Even in daylight, the cabin carries an aura of quiet suspense. The forest remains thick and enveloping, casting dappled light across the wooden exterior and the narrow paths that wind through the trees. Yet it is at night that the cabin truly reveals its character, when ordinary sounds transform into whispers, and shadows suggest presences just beyond comprehension. The interplay of light and dark, sound and silence, creates an experience both subtle and unforgettable, inviting contemplation of the unseen. Visitors often leave Whispering Pines Cabin with questions and stories they cannot fully explain. Each experience is unique, yet common threads emerge, voices without source, shadows that move independently, and a persistent sense of being accompanied by something intangible. The cabin is a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist, a location that encourages awareness, curiosity, and a cautious respect for what may linger unseen. Whispering Pines Cabin endures as a quiet sentinel within the main forest. Its walls, rooms, and surrounding pines harbor mysteries that challenge perception and imagination. The cabin offers an immersive encounter with the unknown, inviting guests to experience an atmosphere where history, memory, and subtle energies converge, creating a haunting yet mesmerizing journey into a space where the ordinary becomes extraordinary and the forest itself seems to whisper secrets that may never be fully understood. Phantom Ridge Cabin sits atop a rugged slope in Idaho, surrounded by dense pine forests and the quiet hum of the wilderness. Travelers who approach the cabin often comment on a sense of stillness, an almost tangible pause in the natural world that seems to signal the presence of something beyond the ordinary. Inside, the cabin exudes the warmth of a bygone era. The fireplace, large and solid, serves as the heart of the space, its stones darkened with age and soot. It is here that many visitors report their first encounters with the cabina's ghostly residents. Figures of miners, dressed in worn work clothes, are said to appear near the hearth, their movements deliberate but silent. They seem to perform tasks long abandoned, as if the passage of time has not reached them. The floors creak underfoot, though not always from those who walk them. Many guests have heard footsteps in the attic above, a space that is empty and rarely accessed. The sounds are unmistakable: heavy boots pacing, the occasional clang of Tulsa, but when investigated, the attic remains vacant. The phenomenon creates a sense of suspense, a feeling that the past is layered over the present, that history is alive within the walls of the cabin. Guests often describe the atmosphere as both inviting and unsettling. The warmth of the fireplace contrasts with sudden drafts that drift through closed doors and windows, carrying with them a hint of the mines, a scent of earth and stone that seems out of place in a forest cabin. Shadows stretch across the walls, sometimes forming shapes that vanish when looked at directly, leaving the observer questioning what is real and what is imagined. The cabin's history is woven into every corner. Constructed during the height of Idaho's mining boom, it housed workers who toiled long hours in nearby shafts. Tales of hardship, loss, and perseverance linger in the air, as though the walls themselves remember the lives of those who passed through. Locals speak of miners who never returned from the slopes, their spirits remaining behind, tethered to the places where they labored and lived. Visitors report that the most striking experiences occur in the quiet hours of the night. The wind outside dies down, leaving the cabin in an almost eerie silence. It is in these moments that the figures by the fireplace seem most vivid. Their outlines shimmer in the flickering light, and some guests have seen them glance toward the doorway as if acknowledging the living who intrude upon their domain. The effect is both mesmerizing and disquieting, a reminder that the cabin exists in a space where past and present overlap. Objects occasionally move without explanation. Chairs are found slightly shifted. Tools rearranged. Small items disappear only to reappear in unexpected places. Guests describe a sense of being watched. Not in malice, but with an attentive awareness. Conveys the presence of spirits who are observant and curious, creating tension without threat. The attic, in particular, is a source of fascination and unease. Footsteps echo across the wooden beams above, sometimes accompanied by soft knocks as if someone is sorting or arranging tools long left behind. Even those familiar with the cabina's history are caught off guard by the clarity of the sounds. And few have dared to linger there alone. The space seems to exist outside normal perception, a threshold between the living and the spectral laborers of the mines. The forest surrounding Phantom Ridge cabin adds to its atmosphere. Shadows play among the trees, moving with the wind in ways that mimic human motion. Occasional distant sounds are rocks rolling down slopes, branches snapping a blend with the cabina's own mysteries, making it difficult to distinguish natural events from spectral activity. Guests describe a feeling that the forest itself is part of the haunting, an extension of the energy that permeates the cabin. Despite the eerie experiences, many visitors are drawn to Phantom Ridge cabin again and again. The allure lies not only in its history but in the tangible sense of connection it offers. The cabin becomes a living monument to the miners who once inhabited it, a place where stories are preserved in atmosphere, shadow, and sound. Those who enter may leave with an unforgettable impression, carrying with them the memory of flickering figures, echoing footsteps, and a fireplace that has witnessed more than a century of life and lingering spirits. Phantom Ridge cabin remains a testament to the passage of time and the persistence of memory. The miners who haunt its hearth and hallways are reminders of lives intertwined with labor, loss, and enduring presence. Visitors often depart with a quiet respect, sensing that the cabin holds both the history of human toil and the spectral residue of those who cannot fully leave. It is a place where past and present coexist, where the ordinary and the extraordinary brush against each other, leaving every guest with an experience that lingers long after the journey ends. In the stillness of the forest, Phantom Ridge cabin waits. The fire glows, the footsteps echo, and the ghostly miners continue their silent work. Each visitor who crosses its threshold becomes part of its ongoing story, witnessing a realm where history refuses to fade and the spirits of those who came before remain, ever watchful, ever present. Darkwater cabin rests quietly on the edge of a secluded lake in Washington, surrounded by dense evergreens that blot out the horizon. The water sits still most of the year, its surface smooth like glass, reflecting the forest and sky with eerie precision. Visitors often describe a strange sensation as they approach, a feeling that the trees themselves are leaning in, watching and waiting. The cabin, modest in size but sturdy in construction, exudes an atmosphere of solitude and quiet isolation. Its wooden walls are darkened with age, and the porch creaks under the weight of its own history. Guests often notice that the air feels different here, heavier, and somehow colder, even on the warmest of summer days. Cold gusts of wind sweep across the cabin, yet the trees remain still and the lake remains calm, leaving no explanation for the sudden chills. Reflections in the lake have long captivated visitors. Some claim to see figures moving along the water's surface. Shapes that vanish when approached or examined more closely. These apparitions appear only in the glassy reflection, leaving the real world unchanged, yet the sense of being observed is profound. Walkers along the shore report glimpsing fleeting shadows. A presence at the edge of vision that disappears the moment attention is focused. The interior of the cabin mirrors the uncanny nature of its surroundings. Doors open and close of their own accord, leaving occupants startled by sudden movements. Chairs shift slightly overnight. And objects sometimes appear in places where they were not left. Some visitors have described feeling a gentle pressure on their shoulders, or the faint brush of cold air as if someone or something had passed closely behind them. Nightfall intensifies the cabina's strange phenomena. Moonlight glances off the lake, illuminating shapes in the trees that seem to move with purpose. The forest emits low, unidentifiable sounds, a mixture of rustling leaves and distant murmurs that rise and fade without pattern. Footsteps sometimes echo in empty rooms, blending with the whisper of the Rockies' water lapping at the shore. Each sound and movement creates a heightened sense of awareness, an understanding that the cabin is alive with presence beyond the physical. Visitors often speak of a growing unease that accompanies their stay. The cabin's quiet moments are punctuated by glimpses of movement in the corner of the eye. Reflections that do not belong, and shadows that linger longer than they should. Despite the calm exterior, there is an undeniable feeling that unseen eyes track each step. Observing, waiting. This tension builds slowly, creating an atmosphere that is both mesmerizing and disquieting. Those who linger near the Rockies' edge sometimes feel drawn into its reflective surface. Shapes appear in the water as if frozen in time, moments of movement and life captured but not fully present. Some report hearing faint voices carried across the water, too soft to understand yet unmistakable in their human cadence. The experience is subtle, unnerving, and yet compelling, as though the lake preserves memories of events long past. The cabin's history is whispered among locals and explorers alike. Darkwater Cabin has long been associated with the unexplained, with stories of previous occupants who felt the presence of unseen watchers and unexplained activity. Some speak of travelers who left in haste, unsettled by a combination of sights, sounds, and sensations that defy explanation. Others return repeatedly, drawn by the mystery and the subtle beauty of a place where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist. Environmental details contribute to the sense of haunting. Shadows stretch long under the moon, creating shapes that seem almost human. The smell of damp earth and pine fills the air, mingling with the intangible sensation of being watched. Visitors who attempt to capture these experiences often find their cameras and recordings produce anomalies. Figures appear in photos where none were seen, lights glimmer in empty corners, and audio devices pick up faint whispers. These occurrences reinforce the sense that the cabin exists in a space where reality is slightly shifted, where perception is influenced by forces both subtle and persistent. By day, Darkwater Cabin appears peaceful, a quiet retreat in the heart of Washington's forests. The lake glimmers in sunlight, the trees sway gently, and wildlife moves undisturbed. Yet beneath this calm exterior lies a history of mystery and unexplained events. Each visitor senses the duality, the coexistence of tranquility and unseen activity, creating an experience that is as reflective as the lake itself. At night, the cabina's full effect is revealed. The windless gusts, the shifting shadows. The reflections that seem to move independently. Guests leave with the memory of cold air brushing their skin. Of shapes glimpsed in reflections, and of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception. A location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of cold air brushing their skin. Of a quiet tension. Of a quiet tension that lingers even after they have returned to familiar surroundings. Of mystery and subtle unease, leaving all who enter with a lasting impression of mystery and subtle unease. Darkwater Cabin is a place that exists on the edge of perception, a location where nature and the supernatural meet. Darkwater Cabin endures as a destination for those drawn to the unknown. Its combination of isolation, natural beauty, and inexplicable phenomena ensures that every visit is unique, with stories that expand and evolve over time. For those willing to explore its quiet shores and shadowed rooms, the cabin offers a hauntingly immersive experience. One that blends the visible and invisible, and leaves a lingering sense of connection to forces that exist just beyond understanding. Blood Moon Cabin sits on the edge of a remote desert plateau in Arizona, its wooden frame weathered by sun and wind, blending into the red-hued landscape. The land around it carries a heavy history, marked by tragedy and loss. Locals speak in hushed tones of accidents and untimely deaths that occurred near the site long before the cabin was built. Visitors arrive expecting solitude, a quiet retreat among the cacti and rocky terrain, yet what they encounter is far from ordinary. As the sun sets, shadows stretch across the desert floor, merging with the cabin itself. The air seems to thicken with an unseen presence, subtle at first, like the faint brush of a breeze that carries a weight far heavier than the wind alone. At night, the cabin transforms. Patrons report shadowy figures moving along the edges of the property, sometimes appearing near windows or lingering by the doorway. These forms are never clear, never fully tangible. Yet their presence is undeniable. A quiet pressure that seems to follow every movement inside the cabin. Inside, the atmosphere is equally unsettling. Floorboards groan as if under invisible weight, and the wind whistles through cracks in the walls with a tone that resembles a low sigh. Chairs that were once empty seem to shift slightly, as though accommodating unseen occupants. Lights flicker inexplicably, casting brief, distorted shadows that stretch and twist across the room. Many visitors describe a feeling of being drawn into the cabina's history. The weight of past events is palpable, a sense that the land remembers every moment of sorrow and grief. Whispers seem to linger just at the edge of hearing. Unintelligible yet emotionally charged, leaving those present with the distinct impression that the cabin is alive in a way that defies ordinary understanding. The surrounding desert enhances the cabin's isolation. Vast stretches of sand and stone extend to the horizon, offering no immediate refuge from the emptiness. Every creak, every shifting shadow, is amplified. In this silence, every sound takes on a life of its own. Visitors often report that footsteps echo where no one walks, and the occasional brush of air feels like a hand passing close by, unseen yet undeniably real. Shadowy figures do not always remain outside. Some appear within the cabin itself, lingering near corners or along hallways. Fading when approached but never vanishing entirely from memory. Observers often feel an emotional weight when these figures are near. As if the cabin itself is trying to communicate fragments of its past through presence rather than words. Even mundane objects seem affected by the cabina's atmosphere. Doors close on their own, utensils move slightly on tables. And small items may disappear only to reappear in unexpected places. The effect is subtle, yet cumulative, creating a sense of unease that deepens over the course of a night. The cabin seems to breathe with the echoes of what has transpired here, holding every story in its timbers and walls. Despite the unsettling experiences, visitors are drawn to the cabin for more than fear alone. There is a fascination with the unknown, an urge to witness and understand the layers of history and presence that permeate the place. Every flicker of light and shadow is a reminder that the cabin is a bridge between past and present, a location where the ordinary world overlaps with something enduring yet intangible. The desert night accentuates the sensation of isolation. Stars pierce the sky. And the moon casts its pale glow across the land, illuminating the cabin in a cold spectral light. In this environment perceptions are heightened. Figures that were unnoticed in daylight become distinct forms in the night. And the subtle shifts in temperature and air take on a significance that feels almost sentient. Visitors frequently report a sense of interaction. The shadowy figures may pause, observe, or even seem to follow movements within the cabin. There is no direct threat, but a persistent awareness that the space is shared with entities that belong to its history. The feeling is intense yet ephemeral, leaving impressions that linger long after departure. Blood Moon Cabin is a testament to the lingering power of place. The combination of isolation, history, and subtle paranormal phenomena creates an environment that is immersive and unforgettable. The presence felt here is both a reflection of past tragedies and a reminder that some spaces retain memory in ways that are beyond ordinary perception. For those who spend the night, the cabin offers a complex experience. The eerie lights, shadowy forms, and sense of being observed converge to create a narrative told without words. It is a story of land and loss, of human presence and absence, a continuous interaction between visitors and the environment that defies easy explanation. Even in the quietest moments, the cabin speaks through sensation. The creak of a floorboard, the whisper of the wind, and the movement of shadows communicate a presence that is patient, observant, and enduring. Blood Moon Cabin remains a place where the past is tangible, where visitors are invited to witness and feel the echoes of history that permeate every corner. By dawn, the desert light softens the cabina's eerie ambience. Yet the experience leaves a lasting impression. Patrons often describe a sense that they were part of something larger than themselves. A connection to events and presences that continue to exist beyond sight. The cabina's story is ongoing, shaped by each new visitor who encounters its quiet, haunting energy. Blood Moon Cabin stands as a place of mystery and reflection. Its shadows and lights, its whispers and subtle movements, offer an immersive experience that engages curiosity and heightens awareness. The history embedded in its walls and surrounding land continues to manifest in ways that are felt deeply, reminding all who enter that some places carry memory and presence far beyond what is visible. Even as visitors leave the desert behind, the sensations remain. The memory of shadowed figures, flickering lights, and the constant feeling of observation endures. A testament to the Cabina South's unique place in both history and the imagination, offering an unforgettable encounter with the unseen. Wraith Cabin, New York, sits secluded among dense woods where the branches of ancient trees weave together to form a canopy that nearly blocks the sunlight. By day, the cabin appears ordinary, a simple wooden structure with a stone chimney and shuttered windows. Yet as evening descends, an unsettling presence seems to awaken within its walls, an atmosphere thick with anticipation and quiet tension that can be felt by all who enter. Guests often speak of hearing faint music drifting through the rooms, melodies that carry without the presence of an instrument or musician. The source of the music is elusive, originating from one corner of the cabin only to vanish and reappear elsewhere. Sometimes the notes are soft and gentle, almost comforting, while at other times they carry a strange melancholy, echoing through the hallways and leaving listeners with a lingering sense of unease. Figures in period clothing have been seen walking through walls or pausing mid-step before vanishing completely. The clothing is reminiscent of a bygone era, long abandoned yet somehow present in the fabric of the cabin. These apparitions move as if caught between worlds, their presence fleeting yet undeniable. Guests often describe the sensation of being watched, a quiet awareness that accompanies each movement, amplifying the stillness of the cabin and heightening every sound. Inside, the air feels heavy, almost charged, as though the cabin itself holds on to memories of the past. Floorboards creak under invisible footsteps, and doors that were securely closed may slowly open on their own. Shadows shift across walls, sometimes long and distorted, at other times subtle, barely perceptible, yet they provoke a persistent feeling that someone or something is observing. Each room carries its own atmosphere, with subtle differences in temperature, scent, and sound, creating a layered experience that is difficult to explain or ignore. The windows of Wraith Cabin offer views of the surrounding forest, where light filters through the leaves in patterns that shift constantly. At night, the darkness outside merges with the shadows inside, blurring the line between the interior and exterior. Many visitors report seeing fleeting shapes move beyond the glass, only to vanish when approached. The forest seems to amplify the cabin's presence, feeding the sense that unseen forces are in constant motion just beyond the edges of perception. At times, the music becomes more insistent, drawing attention to specific areas of the cabin. A melody may lead a guest to the parlor, where the floorboards feel slightly cooler and the air carries a faint aroma of wood smoke and aged fabric. The sensation of another presence can intensify, and figures may appear partially within the room before dissolving into the shadows. It is an experience that blends curiosity with a careful respect, as though the cabin itself guides the observer through its history and secrets. The history of Wraith Cabin remains partially shrouded in mystery. Local records suggest it was once home to a family whose lives ended abruptly, though the details are sparse and fragmented. The connection between past and present seems palpable within the cabin, where echoes of bygone activity intertwine with the perceptions of modern visitors. Guests frequently describe a profound sense of temporal dislocation, as though the moments they experience are layered over events from decades or even centuries past. Walking through the cabin, each step feels measured, deliberate. The silence is punctuated by distant sounds that seem to have no source. A subtle rustling or creaking that keeps listeners alert. Figures appear in peripheral vision, dressed in clothing from another time. Their faces obscured or shifting as if caught between dimensions. When noticed directly, these shapes often vanish, leaving only the memory of movement and the lingering impression of presence. Outside, the forest remains quiet yet alive with subtle activity. The wind through the branches can mimic whispers, creating a dialogue between nature and the cabin that challenges perception. Shadows cast by the moon stretch across the cabina's exterior, sometimes giving the impression of motion where none exists. Guests who venture near the edges of the property often report a strange sense of guidance or invitation, as though unseen hands are encouraging exploration while simultaneously warning of the unknown. Wraith Cabin is more than a structure, it is a living environment that interacts with all who enter. Its history, atmosphere, and subtle phenomena create an immersive experience that engages all senses. The combination of visual apparitions, spectral music, and shifting shadows cultivates an ambience of mystery that lingers long after leaving the cabin. Guests often find themselves reflecting on the nature of the experiences, questioning what is real and what belongs to the unseen. As night deepens, the cabin becomes both captivating and unnerving. The music, shadows, and figures blend seamlessly with the surrounding forest, forming a tableau of the extraordinary within the ordinary. Each moment offers a new discovery, a fleeting glimpse into another world that exists alongside our own. Visitors leave Wraith Cabin with stories, experiences that are impossible to forget, and a sense that the cabin itself watches, listens, and remembers. Wraith Cabin endures as a place where history and the present intersect, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary and every corner holds the possibility of the unseen. It is a destination that invites curiosity, demands attention, and leaves a lasting impression. A sanctuary for those willing to encounter the subtle and mysterious forces that dwell within and beyond its walls. Mistvale Cabin rests quietly among the rolling hills of Vermont, where the morning fog drifts lazily across the forested slopes. The cabin itself, constructed of aged timber and stone, seems to emerge naturally from the mist, as though it has been part of the landscape for centuries. Visitors who approach the cabin often speak of a peculiar stillness in the air, a calm that feels almost unnatural, hinting at the unseen presence that lingers around the property. The surrounding hills are perpetually shrouded in haze, and it is in this soft veil that the cabina's spectral activity is most commonly reported. Figures are sometimes seen moving through the fog, their forms indistinct yet unmistakably human. They glide silently across the hillsides, vanishing and reappearing as though the mist itself carries them along hidden paths. Travelers describe a sensation of being observed, a quiet awareness that someone, or something, is watching their every move from within the veil of fog. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere retains an air of antiquity. The fireplace is central to the main room, its stones blackened from decades of use. The warmth it provides contrasts sharply with the cold drafts that wander through the rooms, carrying with them a faint, earthy scent of the surrounding forest. Guests have reported hearing whispers that echo softly through the hallways, words that seem to float without origin. These sounds are fleeting and subtle, yet they leave a lasting impression, stirring curiosity and unease in equal measure. At times, the whispers carry names, though their source remains invisible. Some visitors have paused mid-step, certain that they have been directly addressed, only to find the cabin empty and silent. The sensation of being acknowledged by something unseen adds a layer of intimacy to the haunting, a reminder that the spirits of Mistvale Cabin may not be malevolent, but are undeniably present. The effect is heightened by the fog outside, which shifts constantly, obscuring the trees and hills, making the boundary between the forest and the spectral world almost imperceptible. Evenings bring a change in the cabin's energy. As the sun sets behind the hills, the mist thickens, settling around the cabin like a living curtain. Shadows lengthen across the walls, and the flickering fire casts patterns that seem to move independently. Guests often report fleeting glimpses of figures at the edges of their vision, just beyond the doorway or outside the window, only to find nothing when they look directly. The combination of darkness, mist, and subtle sounds creates an immersive environment where imagination and reality converge. The forest surrounding Mistvale Cabin is dense and uneven, with trees that bend and twist in the wind. Visitors have mentioned that footsteps seem to come from the woods, though no one is present. Sometimes the sound is light and distant, resembling someone walking carefully on fallen leaves, while at other times, it is more pronounced, echoing across the clearing before fading abruptly. These auditory phenomena reinforce the sense that the land itself holds memories, replaying moments long past for those willing to notice. Some of the Cabina's stories are tied to local history. Settlers who lived in the area often spoke of mysterious lights and sounds on foggy nights, which they believed were omens or spirits of those who had passed. Over time, these tales became woven into the fabric of the cabin, enhancing its reputation as a place where the veil between the living and the departed is thin. Visitors who are sensitive to these energies report a feeling of connection to the past, as if the fog carries both history and lingering consciousness across the hills. Guests have also described the sensation of being followed within the cabin, footsteps matching their pace on the creaking wooden floors. Objects sometimes shift slightly, or are found in unexpected places, though no explanation is apparent. These minor disturbances, combined with the ethereal presence outside, create an environment where the ordinary feels charged with mystery. Every sound and movement seems amplified, drawing attention to details that might otherwise go unnoticed in a more familiar setting. The allure of Mistvale Cabin lies not only in its haunted reputation but also in the natural beauty that surrounds it. The hills roll gently in every direction, their surfaces hidden beneath layers of fog, offering fleeting glimpses of a landscape that is both serene and uncanny. Even during the day, when the mist is lighter, the cabin seems to exist in a separate dimension, a place where the rhythms of nature and the whispers of the past intertwine seamlessly. Visitors often leave with a profound sense of having been part of something larger than themselves. The spirits of Mistvale Cabin, if they exist, are quiet observers, revealing themselves in subtle ways that invite reflection rather than fear. The fog becomes a medium, the forest a stage, and the cabin itself a vessel for experiences that linger long after the visitor has departed. Each encounter, whether a whisper in the hallway or a shadow moving through the mist, reinforces the Cabina's enigmatic charm and its place in the landscape of Vermont's most atmospheric and mysterious locations. The spirits of Mistvale Cabin, if they exist, are quiet observers, revealing themselves in subtle ways that invite reflection rather than fear. The fog becomes a medium, the forest a stage, and the cabin itself a vessel for experiences that linger long after the visitor has departed. Each encounter, whether a whisper in the hallway or a shadow moving through the mist, reinforces the Cabina's enigmatic charm and its place in the landscape of Vermont's most atmospheric and mysterious locations. Mistvale Cabin stands as a testament to the delicate balance between the seen and unseen. The whispers, the shifting shadows, and the figures in the mist are all part of an ongoing story. One that merges human presence with the enduring memory of the land. For those who visit, the experience is unforgettable, a blend of wonder, tension, and the quiet thrill of knowing that some mysteries are meant to be sensed rather than solved. Black Hollow Cabin stands nestled deep within the forests of West Virginia, surrounded by towering pines and the muted sounds of a winding creek. The cabin's wooden exterior is weathered by decades of harsh winters and summer storms, giving it a timeless, almost otherworldly presence. Its windows are small and uneven, framed by dark, aged wood that seems to absorb the shadows of the surrounding forest. Visitors often speak of an immediate change in the air as they approach. The forest grows still, and a subtle chill brushes against the skin, as though the cabin itself is breathing. And the usual sounds of wildlife seem to retreat, leaving only the whisper of the wind through the trees. Inside, the cabin is a study in rustic simplicity. Wooden floors creak underfoot, and the scent of aged timber fills the air. Despite the warmth of the fireplace on colder days, certain areas remain inexplicably cold. These pockets of chill move through rooms without pattern, following footsteps or lingering near old furniture. Chairs sometimes shift slightly from where they were left, and small items can appear in new positions, leaving guests questioning their own perceptions. The most unsettling reports come from the windows. Many visitors have described seeing the figures of children staring out from the glass. Their features often indistinct but their presence unmistakable. The figures vanish when approached, leaving only the reflection of empty rooms and the flutter of curtains in the wind. Some claim the children are caught in moments of play. Others seem to observe silently, as if guarding the secrets of the cabin. Evenings at Black Hollow Cabin bring the most vivid experiences. Shadows stretch and bend in unnatural ways, cast by the flickering light of lanterns or a dying fire. Sounds carry differently here, the soft creak of a floorboard or the rustle of fabric can seem amplified, echoing through the rooms and corridors. Whispers occasionally drift from empty spaces, carrying the faintest hint of words, a language just beyond comprehension. Many visitors have recounted sudden sensations of being touched or followed, particularly near the back rooms or the staircase leading to the loft. The cabin seems alive, not in the conventional sense, but in a way that makes the ordinary unpredictable. The surrounding forest adds to the atmosphere. Fog often rolls in from the creek, thickening the air and softening the edges of the trees. Paths leading to the cabin feel longer than they appear on maps, and shadows between trunks can seem like figures waiting. Birds and small animals are notably quiet near the cabin, leaving an eerie stillness that deepens the impression of solitude and heightened awareness. Black Hollow Cabin carries a subtle, melancholic energy. The history of the area and the old structure itself seem to preserve echoes of the past. Visitors sometimes hear faint laughter, footsteps on the porch, or the patter of small feet across the wooden floors, though no one is visible. The cabin acts as a vessel, capturing fleeting moments of lives long gone and presenting them in whispers, reflections, and shadows. Explorers who attempt to document their experiences often report anomalies in photos and recordings. Shapes appear where no one was standing, lights flare in empty corners. And sounds are captured that were not noticed at the time. These occurrences reinforce the sense that Black Hollow Cabin exists on the boundary of the tangible and the unseen. A place where memories, energies, and spirits intertwine. Daylight brings some relief, but not total comfort. The warmth of the sun and the clarity of natural light reduce the intensity of the phenomena but do not eliminate them. The feeling of observation lingers, and reflections in the windows occasionally reveal fleeting images that vanish when studied closely. The cabin maintains its quiet hold on the imagination, inviting curiosity, respect, and a touch of trepidation. Often describe a mix of awe and unease. There is a compelling beauty in the leave an undeniable impression of otherworldly activity. As night falls fully over the forest, the cabina's mysteries intensify. The darkness outside blends with shadows inside, creating a seamless transition that blurs the line between the physical world and the supernatural. The cold spots wander from room to room, whispers float just beyond comprehension, and the reflections in the windows hold shapes that challenge reality. Black Hollow Cabin is not a place to be rushed through. It demands observation, patience, and an openness to the unseen. Black Hollow Cabin endures as a destination for those drawn to history, mystery, and the unexplained. Its combination of isolation, natural beauty, and subtle paranormal phenomena ensures that every experience is distinct. The cabin offers a space where visitors confront the presence of something beyond the ordinary, encountering shadows, reflections, and sensations that linger long after departure. It is a place where the past whispers through the walls, the forest watches silently, and the memory of ghostly children in the windows remains etched in the mind. Shadow Creek Cabin stands nestled among the dense woods of Tennessee, surrounded by rolling hills and whispering pines. The cabin itself is modest, its weathered wooden frame blending seamlessly with the forest that has grown around it for decades. Beneath the quiet beauty of this remote location lies a history that some say refuses to rest. The land was once home to a small settlement, now long abandoned, where families carved out a life amid the trees and streams. Over time, the town vanished, leaving behind only traces of buildings and memories carried by the land. Locals speak of Shadow Creek Cabin with cautious reverence, recounting stories of fleeting figures and unexplained phenomena that echo the presence of those who once lived here. Visitors to the cabin often arrive seeking solitude or the allure of nature. Yet they quickly realize that the forest and the structure itself hold secrets. Shadows appear near the porch in the fading light, figures of men, women, or children lingering just beyond reach. When approached, these forms vanish, leaving only footprints in the snow or impressions in the dirt as proof of their fleeting presence. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere is dense and charged with anticipation. Floorboards creak under weight that cannot be seen, and objects shift subtly as though moved by invisible hands. The fireplace, long cold and unused, seems to radiate a strange warmth at times, as if the room itself remembers past gatherings and conversations. Outside, the forest adds to the sense of unease. The wind carries distant sounds, voices that resemble laughter or soft murmurs, drifting across the treetops and through the undergrowth. Trees sway in unnatural patterns, their branches scratching against the cabin like skeletal fingers. Shadows flit between trunks, moving in ways that defy the logic of light and perspective. Visitors often report a feeling of being observed, an invisible gaze following them as they walk the property. It is subtle at first, a prickling awareness at the back of the mind, but intensifies as darkness falls. Some have described the sensation of a brush of cold air across the neck or a hand passing lightly along a shoulder, always gentle, never aggressive, yet impossible to ignore. Footprints in the snow or soil become a recurring sign of the cabin's activity. Figures that vanish leave evidence behind, forming an unsettling pattern for those willing to look. The prints sometimes lead away from the cabin, tracing paths into the woods, only to disappear into the shadows of the trees. These traces are a reminder that the presence here is not confined to the structure itself but extends into the surrounding landscape. The nights are the most active. Moonlight filters through the pines, casting long, shifting shadows across the cabin walls. Figures appear and vanish with the rhythm of the wind, their forms fleeting yet distinct. Windows catch glimpses of movement from angles that should not allow visibility. Some visitors claim to see silhouettes moving inside rooms that are empty, leaving them questioning the boundary between past and present. Despite the eerie atmosphere, the cabin retains a quiet beauty. The surrounding forest, streams, and snow-covered hills create an environment of stark contrasts, where the serenity of nature is punctuated by moments of inexplicable disturbance. It is this blend of tranquility and mystery that draws people back, despite the fear it can evoke. The history embedded in the land is palpable. Each creak of timber, each whisper carried by the wind, seems to recount fragments of lives lived and lost. Visitors often speak of a rhythm to the phenomena, as though the cabin and the surrounding land communicate on their own schedule. Shadows appear at certain times, cold drafts intensify in patterns, And footprints emerge when least expected. These occurrences suggest a continuity of presence that extends beyond the realm of ordinary experience, connecting the living with echoes of the past. The forest around Shadow Creek Cabin adds layers to its haunting. Paths that seem familiar by day become disorienting at night. And familiar landmarks shift subtly in appearance. Figures observed at the edges of vision are gone when looked at directly. Yet impressions remain, etched into memory and soil alike. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, creates an immersive environment that feels both timeless and transient. Even brief stays at the cabin leave a lasting impression. Guests describe a heightened awareness, an acute sensitivity to their surroundings, as if the woods themselves are alive with history. Every sound, movement, and change in temperature becomes significant, a signpost pointing toward the unseen presences that inhabit the property. Shadow Creek Cabin is not a place of danger, but of deep, lingering mystery. It is a location where the past converses with the present through subtle signs and sensations. Figures in the snow, shifting shadows, and quiet whispers all contribute to an atmosphere that is simultaneously beautiful and unsettling. The cabin's story is ongoing, shaped by each new visitor who crosses its threshold. The snow, the trees, and the weathered timbers record experiences in ways both visible and invisible. Every step taken on its floors and grounds adds to a tapestry of presence that connects the living with echoes of those long departed. By dawn, the forest light softens, and the shadows retreat. The memory of the night lingers. Visitors leave. That Shadow Creek Cabin holds more than walls and a roof. It holds stories, presences, and memories that refuse to be forgotten. The footprints in the snow, the shifting shadows, and the subtle, ever-present sensations remain. A testament to the cabina's enduring connection to the past. To the past. Shadow Creek stands as a place of reflection, curiosity, and quiet unease, of mystery that is immersive, haunting, and unforgettable experience that is immersive and haunting, unforgettable that 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 experience that. Phantom Pines Cabin, Michigan, stands deep within a forest of towering pines whose needles whisper with every breeze. The cabin appears unassuming by day, a modest wooden structure with a stone chimney and weathered shutters. Yet as night falls, the atmosphere shifts, charged with an almost tangible energy, as if the walls themselves remember every step, every sound, and every moment of its past. Guests report hearing chains dragging across the floor, heavy and deliberate, echoing through empty rooms. The sound seems to come from different corners at once, moving with impossible fluidity, creating a sense that unseen entities are pacing, watching, or perhaps replaying moments long gone. It is a noise that commands attention, impossible to ignore, drawing visitors into a heightened awareness of the cabina's every creak and shadow. Figures are often seen standing in corners, barely perceptible at first, their outlines blending with the darkness. Their presence is undeniable, instilling a sense of being observed. Some guests describe these figures as fleeting, vanishing when approached directly, leaving only the memory of eyes and an impression of intent. The cabin feels alive in these moments, infused with memories and experiences from those who came before, forming a quiet dialogue between past and present. The air within Phantom Pine's cabin carries subtle variations in temperature, shifting unexpectedly from warm to icy cold within a single room. Shadows move along walls in ways that defy logic, stretching and contorting, as though reacting to the presence of those who enter. Even the simplest actions, like walking from one room to another, feel accompanied by the weight of unseen attention, a sensation that the building itself is aware and responsive. Every room has its own character, a unique imprint of past events. The living area hums with quiet tension, where old furniture seems to carry a residual energy, and objects occasionally shift slightly when no one is near. These subtle phenomena create a layered experience, blending sight, sound, and intuition into an atmosphere that is both compelling and unsettling. Outside, the dense pines block much of the moonlight, casting elongated shadows that twist across the cabina's exterior. The forest seems to amplify the cabina's energy, the wind carrying whispers that resemble faint voices or soft footsteps. Visitors often report a sense of being drawn to certain areas, compelled to explore while simultaneously sensing an invisible boundary that warns of approaching too closely. The interplay of light, shadow, and sound crafts an environment that is immersive and continuously evolving. Chains are not the only sounds that disturb the silence. Faint echoes of laughter, murmured conversations, and the shuffle of feet across wooden floors appear and vanish without pattern. Some guests describe hearing doors closing gently behind them, only to find every entryway secure. Each auditory experience contributes to the cabina's pervasive feeling of life, as if the echoes of previous occupants are replaying, intertwining with the presence of the living. Movement within the cabin is subtle yet undeniable. Figures sometimes appear mid-step, frozen momentarily before dissolving into shadows. Guests describe a sensation of being guided, almost watched over, as if unseen hands are orchestrating their path through the rooms. The experience is simultaneously eerie and captivating, drawing individuals into a narrative that is part history, part memory, and part the inexplicable nature of the paranormal. The history of Phantom Pine's cabin remains partially obscured. Local accounts suggest that the building was once home to families who experienced tragedies and sudden losses. Some events were never recorded, while others remain the subject of speculation and folklore. Despite the uncertainty of its past, the cabina's atmosphere communicates these histories in subtle ways, through temperature, sound, and sight, creating a sense that the building itself carries memories and stories that cannot be forgotten. Visitors often describe the cabin as having a pulse, a rhythm that resonates with their own heartbeat. The combination of shadows, sounds, and fleeting figures produces a continuous sense of engagement, where every glance and movement feels charged with significance. Even simple gestures like sitting in a chair or opening a door are accompanied by an awareness of unseen observers. A presence that is ever near yet never fully revealed. At night, the forest surrounding Phantom Pine's cabin becomes an extension of its mysteries. The wind through the pines can mimic whispers, the rustle of branches forming patterns that resemble movement. Shapes are sometimes glimpsed through the windows, fleeting and ambiguous, prompting both curiosity and caution. The boundary between the cabin and the surrounding wilderness blurs, leaving guests uncertain where one ends and the other begins. Phantom Pine's cabin is more than a building, it is a living environment, a vessel of history, memory, and spectral presence. Each visit is unique, shaped by the subtle interactions of sound, light, and perception. The chains dragging across floors, the figures in corners, and the whispers in empty rooms combine to form a cohesive, immersive experience that is both mysterious and unforgettable. Guests leave Phantom Pine's cabin with a sense of wonder and reflection. The memories of fleeting figures, shifting shadows, and resonant sounds linger, challenging their understanding of what is possible. The cabin endures as a space where the past and present coexist, where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, and where every visit is an encounter with the unseen forces that dwell within its walls. Phantom Pine's cabin remains a place of fascination, offering an intimate connection to the mysteries of history and the paranormal. It draws the curious, the brave, and those willing to perceive beyond the visible, leaving all who enter with stories that are impossible to forget. And a feeling that the cabin itself watches, remembers, and quietly interacts with every visitor. Haunted Hearth Cabin sits quietly among the rolling hills of Kentucky, surrounded by dense forests that stretch as far as the eye can see. Its weathered wooden walls and stone chimney give it an appearance of timelessness. A structure that has stood through generations, silently witnessing the passage of years. The air around the cabin carries a stillness that feels heavier than usual, as if the land itself remembers events long past and whispers them to anyone who will listen. Visitors who step through the front door often notice an immediate shift in atmosphere. The familiar creak of wooden floors is amplified in the quiet. The warmth of the hearth contrasts strangely with the cold that seems to seep through the walls. Doors open and close with suddenness, sometimes startling guests who find themselves alone. The sound is subtle at first, a gentle movement, but it carries an unmistakable weight, as if something unseen moves purposefully through the rooms. Footsteps echo across the stairs when no one is climbing them. They rise and fall in rhythm, sometimes pausing at the top, then retreating into silence. Guests have reported feeling a presence on the landing, a sense of being watched, though the halls remain empty. It is this sensation that defines the cabin, the feeling that every room holds memories that are eager to be acknowledged, yet remain just out of reach. Near the fireplace, a shadowy figure is sometimes glimpsed, lingering at the edge of vision. Its form is indistinct, shifting with the flicker of the flames, and it vanishes when looked at directly. Those who have seen it describe a weight of melancholy and a quiet intensity, a presence that seems bound to the hearth and the stories it holds. The firelight dances across the cabin, casting long shadows that merge with the figure, making it impossible to separate the natural from the supernatural. Laughter, faint and almost childlike, sometimes drifts through the halls. It is soft, teasing, and distant, echoing in corners where no one stands. Guests pause in response, their curiosity and apprehension mingling as they search for a source, only to find empty rooms. The sound is playful yet unsettling, a reminder that the cabin holds layers of history and presence that defy explanation. The forest surrounding Haunted Hearth Cabin contributes to the eerie ambience. Trees rise tall and twisted, their branches intertwining to create natural corridors of shadow and light. Fog often rolls down from the hills, settling among the cabin and the trees, softening the landscape while making it feel both inviting and forbidding. Figures are sometimes reported moving through the mist outside, blurred and fleeting, vanishing before a visitor can fully comprehend their form. Inside the cabin, everyday objects seem. Chairs are found slightly shifted from where they were left. Windows open just a crack when no one has touched them. Guests have reported feeling a light brush against their arms, fleeting and imperceptible, as if someone unseen is moving through the room alongside them. These subtle interactions create an environment that is immersive, making every visitor aware of their surroundings and the unseen forces that may dwell within. The cabin's history is rich with the echoes of the past. Built over a century ago, it has been home to generations who lived in close harmony with the land. And it has witnessed both joy and tragedy. Some believe the lingering presence is tied to the lives once lived here. The laughter, sorrow, and daily routines frozen in time, replaying softly for those sensitive to the energies that remain. Each visitor experiences the cabin uniquely, interpreting the subtle cues of sound, shadow, and sensation through their own perspective. Evenings at Haunted Hearth Cabin are when the phenomena intensify. As darkness falls, the fire casts long flickering shadows across the walls, and the forest outside becomes a dark, living silhouette. Mist and fog cling to the windows, obscuring the view and creating an impression of isolation. Guests often feel as though they are part of a story that predates them, their presence acknowledged by unseen eyes and the soft movements that fill the space. Their presence acknowledged by unseen eyes and the soft movements that fill the space. Many who visit the cabin describe a mixture of awe and apprehension. The experiences are not violent or threatening, but they are deeply affecting, leaving an impression that lingers long after departure. The sensation of another presence, of history woven into the walls and floors, creates a connection that is both intimate and mysterious. Every sound and shadow seems purposeful, as though the cabin itself is a living archive of memory, inviting guests to witness and acknowledge its secrets. Haunted Hearth Cabin stands as a testament to the subtle power of place, where the boundary between the living and the unseen is delicate and permeable. Footsteps on empty stairs, laughter echoing through the halls, and the shadow by the hearth all combine to create an immersive, cinematic experience. The cabina's mysteries are quiet yet profound, inviting visitors to explore the layers of presence and memory that define it. For those who step through its doors, the cabin is more than a structure. It is a space where past and present converge, and where the unseen continues to linger in gentle, enigmatic ways. Bloodline Cabin sits deep in the Colorado wilderness, far from the nearest road and hidden among towering pines that sway with the wind. Its wooden exterior is weathered and darkened by decades of storms, giving it a sense of age and isolation. The surrounding forest seems almost alive, a dense tangle of trees and underbrush that muffles sound and distorts perception. Visitors often speak of a heaviness in the air as they approach the cabin. The usual sounds of birds and insects fade, replaced by an unsettling stillness that presses against the skin. A sense of being watched settles quickly, as if unseen eyes follow every step through the undergrowth. Shadows seem to cling to the edges of the trees, moving subtly but never clearly defined. Inside, the cabin is rustic and unadorned. The floors creak beneath each footstep, and the smell of aged timber permeates the air. Some areas are colder than others, pockets of chill that seem to move with the visitor, brushing past shoulders and trailing along the floor. Furniture sometimes shifts slightly from its original place, and small objects appear in new positions, suggesting a presence that is unseen but undeniable. Many visitors recount sightings at the edge of the forest surrounding the cabin. Dark silhouettes appear briefly, often at the corner of vision, then vanish when looked at directly. These forms are fleeting yet unnerving, leaving a sense that something is lurking just beyond reach. Occasionally, distant cries carry across the clearing, sharp and haunting, fading quickly before the source can be located. These sounds leave a lingering sense of tension, a feeling that the cabin's past has not entirely released those who once occupied it. Evening brings heightened experiences. Shadows stretch unnaturally as the sun dips below the horizon. The wind seems to whisper through the trees, carrying faint, indistinct murmurs. Cold spots intensify, and visitors often feel as if they are being followed. A presence moving just behind them or hovering at the periphery of vision. The cabina's windows are particularly unsettling. Reflections often appear distorted, sometimes revealing fleeting shapes that vanish when observed closely. Guests have described glimpses of figures in the glass that are never present in the room, a reminder that the boundaries between the natural and the unseen are fragile here. The sensation is subtle but persistent, an undercurrent of awareness that draws attention to every shadow, every flicker of movement. That draws attention to every shadow, every flicker of movement. A reminder that the boundaries between the natural and the unseen are fragile here. An undercurrent of awareness that draws attention to every shadow, every flicker of movement. That draws attention to every shadow, every flicker of movement. The sensation is subtle but persistent, an undercurrent of awareness that draws attention to every shadow, every flicker of movement. A reminder that the boundaries between the natural and the unseen are fragile here. The surrounding forest adds to the mystery of Bloodline Cabin. Paths leading to the cabin feel longer than they appear. And familiar landmarks seem to shift when retraced. Birds and small animals avoid the immediate area, creating an unnatural quiet. The wind carries strange sounds, sometimes resembling whispers or faint footsteps, heightening the sense that the forest itself is an extension of the cabina's lingering presence. Those who attempt to document their experiences often encounter anomalies. Cameras capture shapes that were not visible, lights flare unexpectedly, and audio recordings pick up faint noises that cannot be accounted for. These phenomena reinforce the impression that Bloodline Cabin exists on the edge of perception, where memories, energies, and unseen presences intertwine. Daylight provides some relief but does not fully dissipate the cabin's influence. The forest is bright and familiar, yet the air retains a subtle weight. Shadows still appear to move strangely, and the feeling of being observed never completely fades. Each step inside the cabin or along the surrounding paths carries with it a heightened sense of awareness and anticipation. Extended visits often leave a profound impression. Guests describe a mix of awe and unease, drawn to the cabina's isolated beauty while unsettled by its inexplicable occurrences. The combination of rustic charm, dense forest, and subtle paranormal activity creates an atmosphere that is immersive and deeply affecting. Every sight, sound, and sensation feels heightened, as if the cabin itself is attuned to the presence of those who enter. Nightfall intensifies the experience. Shadows merge with the darkness of the forest. Cold pockets drift through rooms, and whispers float from corners where no one is standing. Silhouettes linger at the edge of the clearing, always just out of reach, while cries echo faintly, dissolving before they can be fully traced. Bloodline Cabin endures as a destination for those drawn to history, isolation, and the unexplained. Its remote location, coupled with the subtle presence of unexplained phenomena, ensures that every visit is unique. The cabin offers a space where visitors confront the sense of something beyond ordinary perception, encountering shadows, sounds, and sensations that remain long after departure. It is a place where the forest watches silently, where the cries and silhouettes of the past linger, and where the mysteries of Bloodline Cabin continue to captivate all who enter its realm. Echo Ridge Cabin sits deep within the Appalachian forests of North Carolina, surrounded by rolling hills and thick stands of pine and oak. The air carries a chill that is both natural and unexplainable, as though the land itself remembers events long past. The cabina's weathered timbers and stone foundation give it a sense of permanence, yet those who visit soon realize it is anything but ordinary. Visitors often arrive seeking solitude or a retreat into nature, but the moment they step onto the property, a subtle tension lingers in the air. Figures have been reported walking through walls, moving with a fluidity that defies the physical boundaries of the cabin. They appear and disappear without warning, leaving behind only the faintest impressions of their presence. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy with a strange energy. Objects shift slightly, chairs are found moved from where they were left, and the faint sounds of whispers seem to rise from nowhere. Guests describe these noises as soft, almost conversational, calling names or repeating words that vanish before they can be fully understood. The sounds are gentle but persistent, a reminder that the cabin is far from empty. The main living area holds a particular intensity. The fireplace, long cold and unused, seems to pulse with a presence of its own. Shadows gather near the walls and corners, sometimes stretching across the floor as if reaching toward the living. Visitors report a feeling of being observed, a sensation that grows stronger when they move from room to room. Even in the light of day, the cabin seems to hold on to the echoes of events that occurred long ago. Outside, the surrounding forest amplifies the sense of isolation and mystery. Paths through the woods appear ordinary at first, yet they twist and shift subtly, creating the impression that the forest itself is guiding visitors or leading them astray. Figures are often glimpsed at the edge of vision, moving through trees or across open clearings, disappearing when looked at directly. The nights are the most active, carrying emotions that range from sorrow to longing. Doors creak open on their own, and cold drafts move through spaces that should remain sealed, reminding visitors that the line between the natural and the supernatural is thin here. Footprints sometimes appear on the cabin floors, small impressions that vanish when retraced. Guests have reported feeling invisible touches on shoulders or arms, always gentle but undeniable. These sensations contribute to a growing sense that Echo Ridge Cabin is alive with memory, a place where past and present intertwine seamlessly. The cabin's history deepens the mystery. Built on land with a long record of habitation, it has witnessed generations of lives, joys, and tragedies. Each family, each visitor, seems to have left a trace. An energy that persists within the walls. They are part of a continuum that stretches across decades, connecting each moment with those that came before. Even in moments of calm, the cabin maintains its eerie presence. Sunlight streaming through the windows can illuminate dust motes that move in strange patterns. And shadows appear in unexpected corners. The forest beyond seems to breathe in rhythm with the cabin, its whispers and rustling leaves amplifying the sense that this is a place touched by forces beyond comprehension. Guests often speak of a rhythm to the activity, a cadence to the sounds and movements that cannot be explained by natural phenomena alone. Chairs shift at certain times, whispers follow specific paths through rooms, and figures appear with a timing that feels deliberate. This rhythm adds to the immersive experience, creating a narrative that unfolds invisibly alongside the physical reality of the cabin. Creating a narrative that unfolds invisibly alongside the physical reality of the cabin. Despite the unsettling occurrences, the cabin retains a unique beauty. The surrounding landscape, the interplay of light and shadow, and the quiet, persistent sounds of the forest create an environment of tension and wonder. Visitors are drawn not only to the mysteries but also to the serenity that exists in balance with them. Each night spent at Echo Ridge Cabin leaves an impression that lingers long after departure. Guests describe heightened awareness, an acute sensitivity to subtle movements, sounds, and changes in temperature. Every creak, whisper, and flicker of shadow becomes meaningful, a link to the unseen presence that inhabits the space. The objects that move, the figures glimpsed in shadows, and the whispers that carry across the rooms all contribute to an ongoing narrative. Echo Ridge Cabin is a place of quiet unease and fascination. It offers an experience that is immersive and haunting without being threatening. The interaction between visitors and the unseen is subtle yet profound, leaving an impression of a world that exists parallel to our own. By dawn, the forest light softens and the shadows retreat. Yet the echoes remain. Visitors depart with memories of whispers, fleeting figures, and subtle movements that continue to resonate in their minds. The cabin and the surrounding woods hold a story that is alive and ongoing. A story written in shadows, whispers, and the persistent sense that some presences never truly leave. Echo Ridge Cabin is more than a building in the woods. It is a living repository of history, memory, and mystery. Each visitor contributes to the unfolding narrative, experiencing firsthand the delicate interplay between the seen and unseen. It stands as a testament to the enduring presence of those who came before, offering an encounter that is simultaneously beautiful, mysterious, and unforgettable. Dark Pine Cabin, Minnesota, sits deep within a dense forest where towering pines block much of the sunlight. The cabin appears isolated, a weathered structure of dark timber and stone, seemingly ordinary by day. Yet as shadows lengthen and night descends, an unsettling presence permeates the air, a sensation that something unseen is always nearby, observing every movement and every breath. Guests often describe the feeling of being followed, a subtle pressure at their backs, the sense of eyes watching from corners where no one stands. Footsteps echo across wooden floors when no one walks, each creak and tap resonating unnaturally, as if the cabin itself responds to the presence of visitors. Shadows flicker along walls and ceilings, sometimes forming shapes that seem almost human before dissolving into darkness. The interior of Dark Pine Cabin is modest, with a living area dominated by a stone fireplace and simple furniture. Yet each piece of the room seems infused with energy, carrying impressions from past events that linger and manifest in subtle ways. Guests have reported doors opening and closing slowly, lights dimming or brightening without explanation, and cold spots that appear suddenly, brushing against skin like a fleeting touch. Every corner of the cabin has a story. The kitchen is often described as having its own personality, where the faint clatter of utensils or the shuffle of invisible feet can be heard. The bedrooms, small and lined with wooden walls, seem charged with the echoes of voices that drift in and out of perception, leaving visitors questioning whether they heard a word or only imagined it. Even the stairway that leads to a loft carries the sensation of unseen footsteps pacing above. Outside, the wind through the pines can carry noises that resemble whispers or distant laughter, creating illusions of movement and presence. Standing motionless among the trees, only to vanish when approached. The history of the land beneath Dark Pine Cabin is steeped in turbulence. Stories suggest violent conflicts and untimely deaths occurred here decades ago, leaving an indelible mark on the environment. Though many of these events remain partially obscured by time, their impact seems to resonate through the cabin, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and unease. Auditory phenomena are a defining feature of the cabin. Footsteps, creaks, and murmurs appear with no identifiable source, sometimes seeming to follow guests from room to room. The faint scraping of furniture or the tap of an invisible object can trigger a heightened awareness, a feeling that every sound is charged with significance. Even silence carries weight, amplifying the sense of being in a space that remembers every motion and every presence. Light behaves strangely within Dark Pine Cabin. Lamps may flicker without cause, moonlight entering through windows can cast shadows that shift independently of objects. And dark corners can seem deeper than physically possible. Guests report moments when the room feels larger, then smaller, as if the cabin itself is reshaping perception to mirror its hidden past. The psychological impact of the cabin is profound. Visitors describe a sense of being drawn into an unseen narrative, a story that unfolds through fleeting impressions, sounds, and movements. Even mundane actions, such as walking to a window or sitting in a chair, carry a weight, a tension that hints at unseen observers and untold histories. The environment encourages heightened awareness, where every glance and every sound becomes significant, and imagination blends seamlessly with perception. Time feels different within Dark Pine Cabin. Some guests note that hours can pass without realization, while other moments stretch with uncanny length. This disorientation contributes to the immersive experience, where the boundary between the living and the spectral, the past and the present, becomes fluid. Visitors often leave with lingering impressions, feeling that they have encountered forces that exist alongside the ordinary, yet remain just beyond reach. Even the smallest details contribute to the cabina's presence. The subtle chill in a room. The forest outside mirrors this dynamic, with movement and sound suggesting hidden activity. Figures glimpsed through the trees, and patterns that provoke both curiosity and caution. Dark Pine Cabin is not merely a building. It is a vessel of history, memory, and unseen forces. Its structure, its environment, and its atmosphere all combine to create an immersive experience, where guests are constantly aware of the space around them and the energies that linger within it. Chains of perception, shadow, and sound intertwine to form a setting that is both mysterious and unforgettable. Visitors leave Dark Pine Cabin with a heightened awareness, carrying the sensations of being observed, of hearing echoes, and of witnessing fleeting movements that defy explanation. The memory of the cabina's shadows, footsteps, and unseen presence lingers, compelling reflection and speculation. It is a place where history, mystery, and the paranormal intersect, leaving all who enter with stories and impressions that endure long after the forest and cabin fade from sight. Dark Pine Cabin remains a testament to the enduring power of place, memory, and unseen energy. Each visit offers a unique encounter, shaped by subtle forces and layered histories. Guests are drawn into a narrative that is part perception, part imagination, and part the inexplicable essence of a cabin that remembers, watches, and quietly interacts with those who step across its threshold. Wittawa's Peak Cabin perches quietly atop a ridge in the forests of Oregon, its weathered timbers blending into the dense trees that surround it. The cabin seems untouched by time, yet carries an atmosphere thick with unease. The forest winds whistle through the pines, carrying with them a chill that finds its way through the walls and into the very bones of the structure. Visitors speak of the cold that moves unexpectedly through rooms, as if unseen forces trace every corner and doorway. Approaching the cabin, one immediately senses the weight of the past. Windows are framed by aged wood, some cracked with age, and through them, fleeting shapes are sometimes glimpsed. Their presence is subtle at first, a shadow at the edge of vision, but it grows more pronounced as one lingers. A silent witness to the cabina's secrets. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy with the sensation of being observed. Footsteps are heard across wooden floors when no one is walking, and doors may creak open or shut without cause. Visitors have felt hands brush their shoulders lightly, a sensation fleeting yet undeniable. The movement is intimate, as if the past is reaching through the present, brushing against those who dare to enter the cabina's domain. The hearth sits cold and unused, though the cabin feels alive with energy. Shadows cling to corners and hallways, moving almost imperceptibly in rhythm with the faint sighs of the wind. The combination of natural and unseen elements creates a space that is at once inviting and unsettling. Every sound, every subtle shift in the air, seems purposeful, drawing attention to the cabina's hidden narratives and unseen inhabitants. Evenings amplify the cabina's spectral presence. The dying light of day filters through the tall trees, casting long shadows across the floor. Mist often rises from the surrounding forest, curling through the windows and blending with the darkness inside. Guests report that figures appear more distinctly in this time, lingering near windows or moving slowly along hallways. Their presence is fleeting, vanishing when approached, leaving only the sensation that they have been close, observing, acknowledging, yet remaining untouchable. Whispers are sometimes heard, soft and almost imperceptible, carried along with the wind or through the quiet of the empty cabin. They are neither threatening nor coherent, but they leave a sense of unease and curiosity. A reminder that the cabin is alive with memories of those who once walked its floors. The air grows colder in certain spots, and guests often pause in response, aware that they are sharing space with something beyond the ordinary. The cabina's history contributes to its enigmatic atmosphere. Built long ago by settlers who carved their lives from the dense Oregon forests. The cabin has seen generations pass, lives lived quietly yet intensely. Stories speak of women who lingered after the passing of loved ones, their presence remaining tethered to the cabin and ridge above the valley. Whether a result of grief, attachment, or something more inexplicable, their essence seems to imprint upon the very walls and floors, shaping the experiences of those who visit centuries later. Visitors often describe a mixture of fascination and apprehension. The sensations are not violent, but they are deeply affecting, leaving a lingering impression long after departure. A fleeting glance out the window may reveal the figure of a woman standing silently in the mist, her form dissolving when noticed. A hand brushing a shoulder may cause a shiver, an inexplicable chill that travels to the core. Every creak of the floor, every sigh of the wind, becomes part of an immersive narrative that is both historical and supernatural. The surrounding forest enhances the cabina's mystique. Trees twist and bend with age, their branches forming natural corridors of shadow and light. Fog often drifts between the trees and along the ridge, concealing the cabin in a soft, shrouding haze. Shapes seem to move just beyond the corner of vision. And the forest itself feels alive, echoing the energies contained within the cabin. Guests report the sensation of being watched not just by the cabin, but by the entire landscape, as though the woods themselves guard the secrets of Widowa's Peak. Every visit to Widowa's Peak cabin is unique, a deeply personal encounter with the subtle movements of the unseen. The space is a place of quiet tension and gentle revelation, where the past is not erased but layered upon the present. Guests come seeking stories, history, or simply the experience of standing in a place steeped in mystery. And they leave carrying an awareness of the intangible, of energies that persist beyond time. And of the quiet, watchful presence of the women who remain forever tied to the ridge. The cabin remains a testament to the power of memory and place, a space where the natural and supernatural converge. Each sound, shadow, and cold breath of air contributes to a cinematic experience, immersing visitors in a narrative of observation and subtle interaction. A space where the natural and supernatural converge. A living archive of lingering presence, a haunting yet gentle reminder that some souls never leave, and that history can be felt as keenly as it is seen. Nightfall Cabin sits deep in the Montana wilderness, far from roads and neighbors, surrounded by dense forest that stretches endlessly in every direction. Its weathered timbers and moss-covered roof give it a sense of age and isolation, a place untouched by time yet heavy with unseen presence. Visitors often speak of a palpable tension in the air as they approach. The usual sounds of wildlife fade into an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional creak of a tree branch or rustle of leaves. Shadows stretch long and strange across the uneven ground, and the forest seems almost aware of intruders moving within its depths. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere is heavy and layered. The floors groan beneath every step, and the faint scent of old wood and earth lingers. Some rooms are colder than others, with pockets of chill that brush against the skin and refuse to dissipate. Conversations are reported in empty spaces, murmurs that echo off the walls yet cannot be traced to any source. Shadows in the corners of rooms seem to shift when not observed directly. Visitors describe fleeting glimpses of figures standing just beyond the edge of sight. Vanishing when focused upon furniture occasionally moves, ever so slightly, leaving an impression that the cabin itself is aware, reacting to those who dwell within its walls. The forest surrounding Nightfall Cabin adds to the sense of unease. Whispers drift through the undergrowth, voices too soft to identify, yet carrying a weight that leaves the listener unsettled. The wind seems to carry meaning, a low sigh that brushes past and through, amplifying the sensation of being watched. Approaching the tree lean, visitors often feel eyes upon them, unseen but present. Shapes move just beyond vision, silhouettes that blend with shadows and vanish when examined. Evening intensifies the phenomena. Shadows deepen, moving across floors and walls, elongating as the last rays of sunlight disappear. Cold pockets drift unpredictably, brushing along arms and necks. The forest whispers grow more persistent, forming fleeting phrases or tones that suggest thought, emotion, and memory from a past not easily understood. Extended time in the cabin leaves a lasting impression. Guests recount an overwhelming sense of being observed, sometimes feeling followed as they move through the rooms or step into the surrounding woods. The air carries weight, a sensation that the space is saturated with the presence of past visitors. Their experiences echoing through time. Windows become portals to uncertainty. Reflections shift subtly, revealing movement where there should be none. Faces and figures appear briefly in the glass, impossible to locate elsewhere, leaving a sense that the cabin holds secrets beyond physical comprehension. Visitors often find themselves turning instinctively, searching for what is just beyond awareness, yet nothing is ever found. The sounds of Nightfall Cabin are subtle but constant. Creaks, whispers, and faint thuds fill the silence, often overlapping in layers that suggest multiple presences. Guests have reported hearing footsteps behind them, only to find empty floors. Murmured words float from corners, dissolving before meaning can be discerned. The forest at night acts as a companion to the cabina's presence. Shadows pool beneath trees, moving subtly with wind or unseen force. Small animals avoid the area, leaving quiet that heightens awareness of every sound and movement. Whispers drift from the darkness, carried by the breeze, sometimes forming patterns or tones that evoke memory, longing, or warning. Daylight does not fully diminish the feeling of unease. The forest remains dense, and shadows retain strange angles even under the sun. The cabin stands as a sentinel, quiet yet alive with presence. Every room, every corner, every hallway carries subtle reminders that this place has history, memory, and unseen visitors. Visitors often leave Nightfall Cabin with a sense of lingering connection. Experiences of movement, voices, and shadows stay with them, echoing long after departure. The combination of isolation, dense forest, and subtle, persistent phenomena creates a cinematic and immersive atmosphere. Every sight, sound, and sensation reinforces the cabina's unique character, a place where the past, present, and unseen converge. A place where the past, present, and unseen converge. Nightfall Cabin endures as a destination for those drawn to mystery, history, and the unexplained. Its remoteness preserves the intensity of experience, and the interplay of cabin and forest creates a space where perception is tested and curiosity is rewarded. Shadows shift, whispers continue, and the sense of being watched remains, a reminder that some places hold stories beyond the reach of ordinary understanding. Surrounded by rugged terrain and dense evergreens, setting the stage for the mysteries that await those who venture there. As though the mountain itself holds its breath. The cabin is weathered and strong, built of dark timber and stone that blends seamlessly into the surrounding forest. Inside, the atmosphere is charged with a subtle, almost imperceptible energy. Guests often notice that mirrors reflect more than just their own image, sometimes showing shadowy figures standing silently behind them or moving along the edges of the glass. Windows too, occasionally reveal fleeting shapes outside, as if something or something is watching from the tree-line. Doors seem to possess a life of their own. They creak open when no one approaches, and close with a soft but deliberate thud. Some visitors report feeling an invisible presence following them from room to room. A sensation of being observed even when the cabin appears empty. The air carries a chill that rises and falls unpredictably, brushing against skin and amplifying the uncanny stillness of the space. The main living area contains a large stone fireplace, cold and unlit, yet the shadows that gather near it are persistent. Guests describe a sense of anticipation, as if the room itself is waiting for an event long since past. Objects are occasionally found slightly shifted, chairs no longer aligned with tables, or small items resting in places they were never left. The changes are subtle, but unmistakable, leaving a quiet impression that the cabin is responsive to unseen forces. Outside, the mountain surrounds the cabin in silence, broken only by the wind whispering through the pines and the distant cry of a lone bird. Paths leading into the forest appear ordinary at first, yet they seem to twist subtly, disorienting those who wander too far. Shadows flit along the tree line, visible at the edge of vision and vanishing when directly observed. The landscape itself contributes to a sense of unease, creating an environment where perception and reality blend seamlessly. Nights at Silent Summit Cabin are when the unusual activity intensifies. The faint sounds of movement echo in the room's soft footsteps on wooden boards, the brush of fabric, or the whisper of air through cracks in the cabin. These occurrences are not threatening, yet they leave visitors acutely aware of a presence that is both near and intangible. The history of the cabin adds to its enigmatic reputation. Constructed decades ago by a family seeking solitude, the mountain has seen generations of visitors, each leaving an imprint upon the place. Accounts of apparitions and unexplained phenomena stretch back through the years, contributing to a layered tapestry of memory and energy that permeates the structure. Every creak, every cold draft, and every shift in the shadows feels connected to this enduring history. Guests often describe the sensation of being accompanied, a presence that does not speak but seems aware of their movements. Mirrors may reveal figures that are not there when turned to face them directly, and windows capture reflections that vanish the moment attention is focused. The cabin's interior and the surrounding forest create a continuous interplay of light, shadow, and perception, challenging the boundaries of what is seen and unseen. Even in moments of calm, Silent Summit Cabin holds an undeniable atmosphere. Sunlight illuminates dust particles drifting in the air, and shadows stretch and twist along the walls, sometimes forming shapes that suggest a fleeting presence. The wind outside seems to carry whispers and soft echoes, harmonizing with the natural sounds of the forest to enhance the sense that the mountain itself remembers the lives that have passed through. Visitors frequently report patterns in the occurrences, as if the cabin operates with its own rhythm. Chairs move at certain times, doors shift in a sequence, and faint sounds appear in a cadence that cannot be explained naturally. Despite the eerie phenomena, the cabin retains a remarkable beauty. The surrounding mountain landscape, the interplay of shadows and light, and the serene isolation create an environment. An environment that is both unsettling and captivating. The blend of natural splendor and supernatural hints makes every visit a unique encounter, one that lingers in memory long after leaving. Each night spent in the cabin leaves a lasting impression. Visitors report heightened awareness, an acute sensitivity to the smallest movements and sounds. The interplay of shadows, reflected figures, and the whispering wind creates a palpable sense of history and presence. Every step, every glance, and every subtle noise contributes to the feeling that the cabin is alive with memory. Silent Summit Cabin is more than a mountaintop retreat, it is a place where the physical and spiritual coexist. Shadows, whispers, and unseen presences interact with guests in ways that are subtle yet profound. The experience of being there is both haunting and mesmerizing, a reminder of the persistence of memory and the echoes of lives long past. By morning, the forest light softens and the shadows retreat, yet the impressions of the night remain. Visitors depart with stories of figures glimpsed, soft sounds heard, and a lingering awareness that they were not entirely alone. The cabin continues its silent vigil atop the mountain, preserving its mysteries and offering an encounter with the unknown that is as enduring as the peak itself. Silent Summit Cabin stands as a testament to history, solitude, and the unseen. Each visitor becomes part of its ongoing narrative, experiencing the delicate balance between natural beauty and mysterious presence. Experiencing the delicate balance between natural beauty and mysterious presence. The mountain, the forest, and the cabin converge to create a space that is immersive, unforgettable, and quietly alive with the echoes of all who have come before. Immersive, unforgettable, and quietly alive with the echoes of all who have come before. Mountain cabins are meant to shelter the living. But some protect the memories of the dead. These haunted cabins carry whispers, shadows, and tragedies that refuse to fade. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light, and every cold draft is a reminder that the past is never truly gone. Next time you plan a cabin retreat, remember these tales. Would you dare to spend a night in a haunted cabin, knowing the spirits of the past may still be watching you? Some cabins are more than just buildings, they are living stories, haunted by the memories of those who never left.